Welcome to Outing Journal. In this video, I'm going to talk about the FujiFilm X-S10 versus the Sony ZV-1. Which camera is better for vlogging? So yeah, I'm using the Sony ZV-1 with harmonic blink B500. So right now I'm at f1.8, exposure 0, auto ISO, and the shutter speed is going over 1/125. I'm in the aperture priority, and I'm using the standard stabilization. I will be testing the active stabilization later on. Now let's jump to Sony, this FujiFilm X-S10. So now this is the FujiFilm X-S10 with kit lens 15-45. I'm using the APS and OIS Sony, and here's my beloved Sony ZV-1. Again, the standard stabilization is not good, but how good it is. This is a f3.5 lens and this is f1.5. So both of them are somewhere around. If you wanna get the full frame equivalent, just times 2.77 for the f1.8 or for the 1 inch. If you wanna get the aperture of 3.5 into full frame, just times 1.5. So on the screen you can see it will be somewhere around f5. So technically they should give you the same amount of background blur because they are technically identical in the full frame aperture. So I'm a little bit underexposed, but how good are the color and how good is everything. So let me just show you around. Okay, let me get into the sun. FujiFilm X-S10. Again, I'm using the harmonic blink B500, IPS and OIS Sony. The sun is really hitting me. Let me show you the sun hitting on my face. Yeah, I'm using the standard profile on board. I'm using the standard Provia on the FujiFilm X-S10. Yeah, oh, so hot. And I'm using the standard profile on the Sony ZV-1 also. Sony ZV-1 standard stabilization. So how are you liking the FujiFilm X-S10?
Yeah, it's good. It makes the image quite good with the bokeh.
So this is the Sony ZV-1 video quality standard stabilization, not the active. FujiFilm X-S10 standard profile, IPS and OIS only. So which camera are you liking?
Yeah, I like it with bokeh.
Really? So this is the Sony ZV-1 autofocus test, standard profile, standard stabilization. Let me just move out from the scene and then scene. In my personal testing, this Sony ZV-1 or any latest Sony camera autofocus is much better than FujiFilm. For me, FujiFilm remind me of Panasonic's contrast autofocus, the contrast detection autofocus. Literally, if someone asks me which have a better autofocus, Sony S5 the full frame with the contrast detection or the face autofocus, this one comes with a face detection autofocus, I will say they are on the same level. This is the first time I'm really disappointed with the face detect autofocus, especially on the X-S10. I have to put everything on the maximum. The tracking maximum +5 and sensitivity +4, everything maximum. If I put on the standard out of the box, autofocus is going to be very bad. When you compare with the M6 Mark II on Nikon Z50, I'm very disappointed with the autofocus. But again, if you put everything on the maximum sensitivity and tracking, is good enough. But for the Sony, I did nothing. Everything is on the stock setting. So how good is autofocus? This is the FujiFilm X-S10 autofocus test. I put everything on the maximum, the tracking and then the sensitivity, because FujiFilm X-S10, the face detection autofocus is not that good. Even my Olympus EM5 Mark III have a better autofocus system. So let me just turn around. Let me get out from the frame and let me just get into the frame. How good is the autofocus? Let me. So this is the real world test. Let me get a little bit back. Let me come close. The good thing about this, the Fujifilm X-C15-45 is the close-up. I mean the close-up distance is around somewhere around 50 centimeter, if I'm not wrong, or 70 centimeters. So you can use as a semi-micro lens. The Fujifilm X-S10 built-in microphone. So let's see. So how good is the focus? So now I'm testing the Sony ZV-1. The good thing about the Sony ZV-1 is the autofocus is great. So now I'm testing the Sony ZV-1. The good thing about the Sony ZV-1 is the autofocus is great. This I'm using the standard stabilization. This is the standard stabilization. It's a little bit shaky, as you can see. Vivid profile. This is the active stabilization. Active stabilization is very good. The crop is only around 1.19 on the Sony ZV-1 compared to Sony ZV-E10 1.44. Even then, the active stabilization on the APS-C Sony ZV-E10 is not that great. So right now I'm only using the IBIS with the OIS in the 15-45. I much prefer IBIS or even I prefer the active stabilization on the Sony A7 III Mark III, which costs you around $3,000. I really prefer that. So this is the IBIS and OIS only. This is the IBIS with the electronic stabilization, the DIS IBIS and electronic stabilization. It fixes a little bit of the shaking from the corners, but it's still not perfect or at the level of EM5 Mark III or any Micro Four Third camera.